On that day, for the first time, our boy opened his eyes. He saw something that would change his life forever, but that's another story. Our white-haired protagonist looks up in surprise as if seeing something unimaginable. In the sky, 3 women of unparalleled beauty and exceptional skills demonstrate their power. They are legendary warriors. They fight with great skill, wiping out demons and clearing away their fallen enemies in a dangerous dance. In the midst of the battle, a shadowy creature emerges, the corpse flame. One of the women alerts her companions to the imminent danger. One of the women, her face bruised and battered, seems to be in pain, but she'll be ready for the next challenge soon. Defeat looms near. One of them falls, another is consumed by the dark energy. A desperate cry echoes, "Big sister." A 4th woman faces a giant skull of dark energy. The situation is desperate. "Yufan!" she yells. The last woman prepares a powerful attack with a talisman. Her fury is clear and she will not show any mercy. Our hero is on the ground, hiding in the grass and watching the fight from a distance. He comments on the battle between immortals and how mortals suffer, saying he's just an ordinary guy who came to the mountain to find an antidote for his brother. In a flashback, our hero, Yifan, was a delivery driver who had a car accident 3 years ago and got Azekai'd, that classic truck kun. Back in the present, he watches 2 giant monsters, a scorpion and a spider, fighting. He complains that he doesn't have any cheat codes. The scorpion attacks. Yifan is nearby, and he complains about not having a system or any natural talent for cultivation. He remembers being taken in by an old man from a pharmacy. He makes a living by gathering herbs. A funny thought shows him comparing the old man's hair to his dog's. The giant spider is about to attack him. He begs it not to shoot while complaining that other isekai people have special abilities. The spider doesn't care and attacks him anyway, while he screams that he's a transmigrator. The attack sends him flying, and to his bad luck, he goes straight toward a cliff. Desperate, our boy can't hold on and ends up falling into the dark abyss. Luckily, he survives the fall and wakes up in a strange cave with a blue light. Yifan then opens his eyes and wonders if he actually survived after falling from such a great height. However, he realizes he's hanging upside down from a tree branch. And right there, he finds the Shan de Mantulu flowers he was looking for. This stroke of luck leaves our protagonist completely stunned by what he's found. He quickly grabs his axe because with them, he can create an antidote. He gets excited because this will temporarily suppress Shu Dafu's poison. But suddenly, a mysterious voice calls him young master, and everything gets tense. Right after, a woman approaches and says that he smells very nice. Startled, he asks who she is and finds the woman right on top of him. The mysterious woman just gives our hero a very mischievous laugh. Then she says he trespassed into her home, but she likes it because he's cute. Our hero gets all flustered but compliments the woman, saying she is also very beautiful. However, the woman reveals a snake-like tongue and asks if he would let her have a little taste. Then she transforms into a horrible monster and screams that she wants to devour him. Panicking, Yifan swings his axe without a second thought, landing a solid hit. He's surprised it connected and thinks the monster is pretty weak, but she becomes furious. The creature says that even as a humble monster, she is still much stronger than a mortal. Then she lunges at our boy, wanting to swallow him, but he refuses to be defeated. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and he looks at the sky, completely shocked. A giant skull with green fire appears out of nowhere, right above them. The skull then unleashes a blast of flames that hits everyone down below. Up in the sky, a shadowy figure shouts the name Shu Wushuang, telling her to show herself. The villain threatens to destroy the entire mountain forest if the person doesn't appear. He has a wicked look in his eyes and seems ready to follow through on his promise. Meanwhile, our protagonist is caught in the flames and laments about being defeated again. But in the midst of the pain, he recognizes it as the immortal corpse flame and becomes desperate. Our protagonist cries and bemoans his bad luck, as the army of transmigrators has lost another soldier. But a single tear activates a system that detects lethal danger and initiates the billionaire cultivation base. A notification sound chimes and a blue screen with the word "activating" appears before him. Yifan is completely confused by the screen that appeared in the middle of the flames. Then he gets emotional, because he waited 3 long years for his system to arrive. Right after, a small pink-haired fairy comes out of the screen and calls him "Dear Host." She introduces herself as the system administrator and says he can call her 99. 99 shows his stats and reveals that he has 999 billion years of cultivation stored up. Our hero's jaw drops and his eyes widen at the absurd amount of power. Immediately, he starts dreaming about how invincible he would be, dominating everything and everyone. Super hyped, Yifan asks if with all this power, he can shatter the world with a single punch. 99 gives a confident smile and says he probably can, but he seems to ignore her warnings. She then disappears, saying she's eager to see him use the system, but he begs her not to go. Suddenly, our boy hears a strange noise and sees one of the warriors falling from the sky. And to his bad luck, the woman lands right on top of him, knocking him flat on the ground. Our hero groans in pain on the ground and wonders what on earth just happened. Then he sees that the fairy warrior from before landed right on him and thinks his system bonus. He asks if the woman is okay and points out that she's crushing him. But she grabs him and says that if he doesn't want to perish, he needs to promise her something. Our boy turns bright red and wonders if fairies are always this direct. She then takes out her last teleportation talisman to get him out of there and deliver a message. However, the talisman explodes in her hand, leaving both of them shocked by what happened. And to make matters worse, the villain appears in front of them, calling the woman Shu Wushuang. Yifan gets scared because he recognizes the skeletal flame that almost took him out before. The demon then gives a wicked smile and says that no one can escape from him. Right after, our hero is hit again by the green flame and falls to the ground. The warrior can't escape either and cries out in pain as she is engulfed in flames. In the midst of the chaos, Yifan notices that his Shandaman Tualu flower has been hit. He watches all his hard work turn to ash and falls into despair. In his mind, all he can remember is how he's always been a failure. Even while trapped, the warrior Shu Wushuang threatens the demon Shilong, saying her master will get him. But the villain just laughs and says her master wouldn't dare to mess with the corpse sect. He then prepares to finish her off for good, since no one could save her now. But out of nowhere, our protagonist gets up with his axe in hand and a sinister aura. Yifan stares down the demon and asks if he was the one who burned his flower, and the villain calls him an ant. Our hero then gives a smirk and calls on his system to join the fight. The system activates devil mode, and an absurd red energy explodes from Yifan. The sudden change leaves both the demon and Shu Wushuang speechless. A gigantic wave of power erupts from our boy and sweeps through everything around them. The warrior is shocked because he was just an ordinary guy seconds ago. The demon feels the terrifying pressure and asks what on earth our hero did. Yifan, now in a shadowy form, asks if mortals are still just ants. The villain gets scared and tries to boast about his strength, saying the boy's weapon wouldn't hurt him. However, our boy's axe glows with a frightening red energy, and with a single swing he strikes the demon head-on, who screams in pain. Yifan hits the demon with a blast of red and black energy. By the way, the attack is powerful. Up close, Yifan's face is filled with rage. Moreover, it shows the wrath of an ordinary individual. A shocked Shu Wushuang wonders if that mortal really defeated Shilong. However, she can't believe what she's seeing. Yifan stands over the defeated demon with a red aura and the sky full of blue lightning. Although the attack looks different, Shilong is stunned and in pain. On the other hand, he doesn't understand how his golden body was harmed. Yifan, with glowing eyes, throws his weapon, which looks like a sword, into the air. In addition, he warns that it's time to perish. Yifan's weapon transforms into black flames and strikes Shilong. However, the demon suffers a fatal blow. A huge blast of red energy cuts through everything in its path. Though the fury is palpable, the attack opens a gigantic rift in the mountain behind them. On the other hand, the scene is devastating. The demon Shilong's body is completely obliterated by the overwhelming power. Although the scene is incredible, Yifan stands before what's left of the enemy. By the way, he looks victorious. He observes the massive trail of destruction his attack left on the landscape. However, the scene is otherworldly. Shu Wushuang wonders what level of cultivation is needed for a strike like that. Furthermore, she is amazed. Yifan thinks that these 999 billion years of cultivation, although it is magnificent, are really fun to use, and he makes a face like someone who loved the power. In addition, the story continues. But 99 appears, warning him that he used cultivation far beyond his physical limits. Because of that, his life expectancy was reduced by 44 years. A screen then shows that our hero now has only 6 years of life remaining. Yifan gets furious and yells at 99, wanting to know what's going on. The little fairy just watches him with a bright gaze, calling him, "My lord." And she reminds him that using too much power without a strong enough body reduces his life. Our boy cries and asks what's in it for her if he perishes and the system ends. However, 99 explains that the system would continue even if he were gone. He then realizes he was tricked by the little fairy and yells at her in complete desperation. At that moment, Shu Wushuang thanks him for saving her life and calls him senior. Our hero wonders if he looks that old, but quickly focuses on finding a way to live longer. The warrior then explains that Shilong chased her for 3 days because of a treasure, and as a thank you, she offers to give the treasure to our protagonist. But to her surprise, Yifan refuses the offer and tells her to keep the sword. Shu Wushuang is shocked, unable to believe he doesn't care about the treasure she protected. He then approaches the woman and asks if she has any longevity pills. The warrior looks a bit awkward and replies that unfortunately, she doesn't have anything like that. Our hero then tells her to leave because he needs to be alone to think. However, she calls out to him and offers 5 jade toad pills with healing effects. Our boy gets super excited because that's exactly what he needed. Meanwhile, in the Valley of Dragon Mountain, a mysterious red energy appears. This strange energy begins to form a giant clock in the sky. And some monsters notice that the palace of the compassionate immortal emperor has appeared. Elsewhere, some people also notice the bright light over Great Dragon Mountain. One of the men looks surprised as he realizes what's happening over there. Then, an old master confirms that the palace is hidden in that mountain. And a demon leader yells that the inheritance cannot fall into the hands of other sects. So he orders all his disciples to rush to the immortal palace. But before he finishes speaking, a dark energy strikes him down. A giant demon named Stone Ghost asks who gave him permission to speak. Meanwhile, Stone Ghost asks his lackey, Bai Kui, if they have reached Dragon Mountain. The servant then confirms they have, and the master prepares for revenge. He realizes his dragon's soul has been scattered and vows to crush the culprit. With his eyes glowing with hatred, the giant demon orders his troops to descend the mountain. The scene then cuts to Tianhu City, where our hero has finally arrived. Our boy enters the pharmacy and celebrates that he's finally back home. However, he finds the silence strange and wonders where his friend Dafu is. A weak voice calls to him from the shadows, revealing the young man completely transformed by the poison. Our protagonist is startled by the noise and goes on high alert. Dafu then crawls towards him with red eyes, asking for help because he's hungry. The poison has turned him into a bizarre creature, and he has completely lost control. The creature then lunges at our hero, but someone tells him to get out of the way. A mysterious man appears and lands a powerful punch on Dafu. The blow is so strong that it throws the creature to the ground, creating a small crater. Our boy then recognizes the savior as Uncle Shu and is shocked by his presence there. Uncle Shu shouts a warning that Dafu is turning into a zombie and not to let him bite. But it's too late and the young man transforms into a bizarre monster that tries to devour them. Then our hero rushes towards him with the medicine in hand to try and save his friend. He throws the vial, which explodes in a burst of light and manages to disperse all the poison from his body. Dafu wakes up confused and our boy explains that he was saved by the Jade Toad pill. His friend gets super emotional that he used such a valuable medicine to save him. Right after, Dafu excitedly jumps on Uncle Shu, saying he's going to be rich. However, our protagonist pushes him away in embarrassment because the guy is barely wearing any clothes. Poor Dafu doesn't even understand what happened and ends up falling to the ground hard. Suddenly, our hero's system beeps and he wonders what the alert is. A screen appears showing that Dafu is a cultivator in the establishment realm. 99 then appears and explains that the system now scans other cultivators. And with a wicked smile, she says he can disable the function if he wants. But our boy doesn't disable it and discovers that Uncle Shu is in the nascent soul realm. He is shocked because he thought they were both normal people like him and discovers their secret. Our protagonist celebrates with 99 because now he's the king of showing off. But the party is interrupted by someone shouting that his wife has arrived. Right after, some strong men appear carrying a fancy palanquin. And they seem to be struggling quite a bit to carry the weight. Inside the palanquin is Madame Wrong, a rather large matchmaker. Our hero is completely confused and Dafu teases him about his questionable taste. The woman explains that the old man from the pharmacy asked her to find someone for him. Then she shows a cage full of beast girls and Dafu already wants to pick one. But our boy turns bright red and says he doesn't want to marry anyone. However, the matchmaker teases him, saying she knows about the things he hides. Dafu then seizes the chance to tease his friend, who denies everything in embarrassment. Suddenly, our protagonist gets serious and seems to notice something very strange. He then approaches the cage and starts looking for someone specific. Our hero ignores all the other girls because none of them are the one he's looking for. Until finally he finds the girl he was searching for all along. He then clears his throat, and the girl looks at him with her big, scared green eyes. Our hero extends his hand to her, and the girl is confused about what's happening. He introduces himself and invites her to work at the pharmacy because they need help. The girl then takes his hand and says her name is Linger. She begs to stay, saying she can do anything, and our boy agrees on the spot. Seeing the scene, Dafu and Uncle Shu tease the young man, saying he likes the younger ones. The matchmaker then offers to arrange some ladies for them too. But the two panic and refuse the offer, saying they're not interested. Meanwhile, the system reveals that Linger is the chosen daughter of the heavens. The scene cuts to Delong Mountain, where the giant rift remains open. And there Shiyu's servants find the remains of his son Shilong. One of the demons throws the dead young man's ashes in front of everyone, and they confirm that Shilong was completely annihilated, leaving no trace behind. Furious, Shiyu activates his secret bloodline tracking technique. With his power, he creates a trail of blood that will lead him to his son's killer. With a wicked smile, the demon discovers that the trail points to Tianwu City. His red eyes glow with hatred, and he vows to teach the killer the meaning of terror. Meanwhile, at the city's pharmacy, our hero is calmly calling for Linger. The girl then appears, looking cute with a tray, and offers him some tea. Our boy thinks that without the system, he would never have known she is the reincarnation of the Empress. So he hands her a book and invites her to practice the flying immortal scripture. Little Linger is surprised and asks if she can really try to read the sacred book. Our protagonist then brags, saying he's been training for 3 years and can help her. But as she reads the book, she advances through several cultivation stages at once, leaving him shocked. Yafan is completely speechless at the absurd difference between a genius and himself. The girl asks what's wrong, and our hero is in the corner, disillusioned, asking for a moment. Far away at the gates of Tianwu City, someone finds it strange that the sky has darkened. People are confused by the sudden change as the weather was fine before. Suddenly, one of the guards points to the sky, completely terrified by what he sees. A giant creature attacks the city with the fearsome and immortal corpse flame. The explosion leaves a skull of smoke in the sky, and the guards panic. Several dark beasts from the corpse sect invade the city without mercy. Meanwhile, the demon Shiyu shouts that he knows his son's killer is there. So he vows to destroy the entire city to avenge the young man's passing. Back at the pharmacy, our hero realizes he'll have to sacrifice more of his life to fight. Outside, the corpse spirits begin to attack all the innocent people in the city. Shiyu then lets out a wicked laugh and says the entire city will be his son's tomb. And a wave of dark energy covers everything, burying the city in despair. But at that moment, in our protagonist's pharmacy, things are quite calm. He is peacefully teaching little Linger how to cultivate. He knows the enemy is strong and that using his power costs him his precious life. He remembers that he needs to control the size of his attacks so he doesn't overdo it. Because if he uses that move again, he will surely perish on the spot. So our protagonist gets the idea to infuse his cultivation into parts of his body. He tests it on his hand but is surprised because it doesn't seem to have changed much. But in doing so, a spatial rift opens, and he wonders if he tore through space with a single touch. Then our hero decides to test infusing the cultivation into his eyes to see what happens. And to his surprise, he can now see scenes thousands of miles away. Moreover, the more power he puts in, the farther his vision reaches, like an ocean at night. His vision becomes so powerful that he can even see beyond the sky as if he were in space. However, our boy realizes that this divine eye also has an X-ray vision feature. And without meaning to, he ends up seeing little Linger in a very challenging cultivation pose. The scene catches him by surprise, and he's thrown back with a nosebleed while the girl asks what happened. He then holds her and asks her not to move, and the girl gets worried about her cultivation. Little Linger then says she feels a warm power rising in her body. Our protagonist realizes that by infusing his cultivation into her, he can increase the girl's strength. But she starts making noise, and he asks her to be quiet so the neighbors don't hear. Meanwhile, at the city gates, chaos breaks out and the demons scream for destruction. The corpse spirits attack the citizens, who can do nothing to defend themselves. And the creature's red eyes show they will have no mercy for the innocent. Suddenly, the guard captain, Peng Fei, shouts that he will defend Tianwu City and that the monsters will turn to ash. He unleashes a powerful phoenix flame at a strange creature that was attacking the area. The attack goes straight for the beast, which has a very ugly face and glowing red eyes. Then Peng Fei dives straight at the monster with his fire ability. Seeing this, one of the soldiers gets all excited and shouts for his leader to finish off the enemy. However, the phoenix attack is stopped by a dark energy, and Peng Fei introduces himself, questioning the aggressor. The villain is an elder Shi, who mocks Peng Fei's power, and the guard tries to buy time by mentioning the city lord. But the elder isn't interested in talking and says he will never see Lord Chuwayu again. In the blink of an eye, the villain appears in front of Peng Fei, who is completely shocked by the speed. And with no chance to react, the guard is pierced by a powerful blow. Even injured, he still manages to curse Elder Shi, saying the city lord will get her revenge. However, the villain just finds the threat amusing and starts laughing in his face. Soon after, he yells that he's going to finish off the guard, and that the next step is to destroy the entire city. But out of nowhere, our protagonist appears with a girl and recognizes the villain as Shi Yu, saying he came for revenge. Then he turns to the girl named Linger and asks her to concentrate because it's a crucial moment. Suddenly, the guard Captain Fei shouts that he will defend Tianwu City and that the monsters will turn to ash. He unleashes a powerful phoenix flame at a strange creature that was attacking the area. The attack goes straight for the beast, which has a very ugly face and glowing red eyes. Then, Peng Fei dives straight at the monster with his fire ability. Seeing this, one of the soldiers gets all excited and shouts for his leader to finish off the enemy. However, the phoenix attack is stopped by a dark energy, and Peng Fei introduces himself, questioning the aggressor. The villain is an elder Shi, who mocks Peng Fei's power, and the guard tries to buy time by mentioning the city lord. But the elder isn't interested in talking, and says he will never see Lord Chuwayu again. In the blink of an eye, the villain appears in front of Peng Fei, who is completely shocked by the speed. And with no chance to react, the guard is pierced by a powerful blow. Even injured, he still manages to curse Elder Shi, saying the city lord will get her revenge. However, the villain just finds the threat amusing and starts laughing in his face. Soon after, he yells that he's going to finish off the guard, that the next step is to destroy the entire city. But out of nowhere, our protagonist appears with a girl and recognizes the villain as Shi Yu, saying he came for revenge. Then he turns to the girl named Linger and asks her to concentrate because it's a crucial moment. 99 appears with a smile and announces that our lord now has only one more year to live. Our hero freaks out and yells that it's not fair to take 5 years since he tried to control himself. The little fairy then explains that scanning and strengthening girls costs a lot. And with a mischievous look, she confirms that all his powers consume his vitality. Yifeng gets furious and accuses the system of being a shameless, deceptive black market. But 99 starts to cry and says the choice to use the power was his and that she's going to ignore him. Our protagonist is stunned, unable to believe she managed to turn the tables and blame him. Back in reality, little Linger asks what he was doing, as he seemed to be in another world. He then thinks he was tricked by a vampire and needs to find a longevity remedy. So, our boy heads straight for the Wamba Pavilion, a place famous for selling pills. He then approaches the place, hoping to find something that can help him live longer. But inside, a man prepares a powerful technique with a solid phase talisman. The guy then activates the item with full force, and his eyes glow with a sinister energy. With that, he seals the entire area and announces that no one enters or leaves for 2 hours. The man gives a satisfied smile as now no one can enter the Wamba Pavilion. However, our hero walks right through the barrier, and the guard is left utterly confused. He wonders how an ordinary person managed to pass through his spell without any difficulty. Suddenly, the system beeps, warning of a nearby cultivator, and Yifan panics. He then argues with 99 because the automatic scanning is draining his life. Our boy yells at her to turn everything off, and the guard watches him, thinking he's crazy. The man then tries to convince himself that the barrier wasn't fully active yet. Meanwhile, our protagonist enters the Wanbao Pavilion and is amazed by the size of the place. But he quickly remembers he only has 1 year left to live and needs a longevity item. Because if he fights again without solving this problem, things could get very ugly. A woman named Hongyin then introduces herself as the master of the pavilion and offers her help. Our hero is a bit embarrassed but asks if she has any longevity pills or techniques. The woman says those items are rare and she has nothing to sell, leaving our boy devastated. However, she changes her mind and places a vial with 3 longevity pills on the table. And with a very mischievous look, she asks if that would be useful for the young master. Our protagonist gets super excited, and with his eyes shining, he asks how much the vial costs. Hongying realizes she was mistaken and that he's just an ordinary mortal with no cultivation. So she says that each pill costs 1,000 spirit stones, and he pretends that's cheap. But inside, he's freaking out because a mansion costs only 30 stones, and he doesn't have the cash. Suddenly, our hero seems to have a brilliant idea to solve the situation. So he turns to the woman and proposes a very interesting deal for both of them. She's a bit suspicious as she can't imagine what an ordinary guy could offer. Our boy then offers to protect the pavilion in exchange for the 3 longevity pills. Hongying bursts out laughing and says no one would dare mess with her place. But right at that moment, the Black Wind gang invades the place, wanting to steal everything. And right after, the 2 leaders of the gang appear with a very intimidating look. The pavilion guards rush at them, shouting and ready for a fight. However, one of the villains knocks out a guard with a single punch, showing his strength. After that, the gang starts taking everyone down without any mercy. The woman doesn't seem impressed with the invaders, but someone tells her to stop pretending. The leader reveals that he knows her elders have left and that she is all alone. The villain then confirms that the 3 of them came there to end her life. Hongying realizes they planned everything in advance to catch her off guard, but she transforms into a sinister shadow and says they underestimated her. One of the henchmen warns about the strange smoke but is hit in the face before he can react. Right after, the woman appears and lands a powerful kick on the first villain. Then she turns to the next one and taunts him, asking where he's looking. Hongying then lunges at the second henchman and attacks him with a precise blow. Seeing this, the last villain braces himself, knowing he'll be the next to be attacked. And as expected, the woman lands a kick on him, but the big guy manages to grab her leg. With a wicked smile, the man says she underestimated him and that now he's got her. He pulls her with all his might, and the woman screams as she's dragged towards the enemy. Hongying panics as she realizes she can't free her foot at all. The villain then grabs her in a bear hug, completely immobilizing her. He takes the opportunity to sniff her, and the woman gets furious with the big guy's disrespect. But the other henchmen remind him of the mission to take care of everyone and leave no trace. The brute then agrees and says he'll take care of it very quickly. But our hero interrupts him and reminds Hongying about the deal they made. He reaffirms the offer of 3 longevity pills for the protection of the pavilion. Desperate, the woman says that if he saves her, she'll give him 300 pills, no problem. So he fan accepts the mission and 99 appears excitedly as harvest time has come. However, our boy panics when he remembers he only has 1 year left to live. 99 tells him not to worry, as that's more than enough for these weaklings. Our hero then wonders if he should use his pinky finger or a strand of hair for the fight. The villain gets irritated by the scene and tells his henchman Du and Guy to take care of our boy. The servant then launches several energy bindings toward our protagonist. The 2 villains call him an ignorant brat as the attack rapidly approaches. The bindings then strike him head-on, piercing him from all sides without mercy. Right after, he is completely engulfed by the enemy's dark energy. The brute then tells Hongying that her last hope has just turned to dust. But the woman just thinks it serves him right for meddling where he shouldn't have. However, the dark energy bindings can't hold our hero for long. With a spin, he breaks free from everything and easily destroys the enemy's attack. Our boy then grabs Hongying's pipe and decides to use it as a weapon in the fight. The villain is shocked that he escaped and vows to finish the young man off for good. But our protagonist is already tired of all the talk and prepares for a counterattack. Right after, he throws the pipe with absurd force toward the villains. The object flies like an arrow and hits both henchmen head-on with a devastating impact. And with that single blow, both enemies are completely annihilated with no chance to defend themselves. Our hero feels a bit awkward, realizing he used a little too much force again. The gang leader then despairs upon seeing our protagonist's true power. So he grabs Hongying and uses her as a hostage, threatening to end her life. Our boy then faces him with a red aura, finding it ridiculous that he's trying to threaten him. Then, with a swift movement, he launches an energy blast that severs the villain's arm. The brute screams in pain and lets go of the woman as he is badly injured. And our hero warns that whoever insults him will taste the agony of a fate worse than being defeated. The red energy then pierces the villain, who screams in pain as he's struck. He looks on in terror as the pipe our hero threw is about to enter his mouth. Right after, the brute explodes from the inside, becoming just a silhouette in the chaos. Our boy takes back the pipe and says that the item doesn't belong to petty people. With a smile, he says that's all for today, and the fight finally comes to an end. The system then announces that for taking out 3 cultivators, he lost 2 months of his life. Our protagonist is super happy because he didn't use up much of his precious life this time. However, 99 makes an angry face because with this, she won't meet her monthly quotas. Yahello then pinches her cheeks and says he'll control his power so she can't take advantage. 3 Fators. The little fairy cries and complains that her face is swollen and that he'll be sorry. Our hero is confused by the little 99's dramatic reaction. At that moment, Honging thanks him and offers 12 longevity pills as a reward. But he calculates that 12 pills only grant 3 years of life and that he needs another solution. So he asks if she has any body refinement techniques in the pavilion. The woman explains that those techniques have been lost and they no longer collect such things. But Honging says that if the senior needs it, Pavilion will spare no effort to find the technique. She emphasizes that his strength is incredible and that they are ready to help with anything. But out of nowhere, a dark energy cuts through the air, surprising everyone there. The body of one of the fallen villains explodes in a sinister purple light. Our protagonist is shocked and a furious voice calls him a defiant brat. And from the ashes, a new enemy arises, shouting that he dared to take out someone from Blackwind Village. The monster named Shangda vows to make him pay with his own blood for his audacity. Honging then explains that he implanted a clone in his brother's body as a plan B. Our hero gets desperate as the enemy starts attacking him without giving him time to think. He quickly asks 99 how many days of life he'll need to defeat this guy. The little fairy then teases him, offering kicks of 2, 3, or 6 months and rushes him into the fight. The villain doesn't wait for an answer and unleashes the powerful apocalypse flame at them. Our boy panics as his life starts to drain just from the pressure of the attack. Shangdai charges forward with full force, yelling for our hero to prepare to be finished for good. Seeing he has no choice, our protagonist decides to take the punch head-on with his life. To save himself, he eats all the longevity pills at once and prepares for the attack. The villain calls him an insect and vows to tear him to pieces without any mercy. But our hero unleashes the power of billions of years of cultivation with a confident smile. And with a devastating blow, he collides with the enemy's attack in an explosion of energy. After that, he realizes he overdid it again and still can't control his power. The system then shows that he now has 2 years and 3 months of life remaining. The camera then shows the Wanbao Pavilion completely destroyed by the battle. Inside, Honging approaches our protagonist to talk to him. She then begs him to help her wash her essence and marrow to purify herself. Our boy is confused and asks why on earth he should help her with that. The woman then begins to tell our hero the sad story of her life. She was the rightful heir to the pavilion but was poisoned and lost her power. Because of that, her cultivation diminished and she became a discarded child for many years. She then promises that if he helps her, she will help and obtain the best longevity item. Our protagonist remains silent, thinking about Hongjing's tempting offer. The woman gets embarrassed and asks if he doesn't want to help her get the item. But our hero teases her, asking if she wants to do the ritual right there in the hall. She turns bright red and says no, stuttering in embarrassment at the situation. So she takes him to a room in the back of the pavilion for more privacy. Opening the door, she shows him the room and asks if the space is sufficient for the ritual. The place is very spacious and even has a large bed in the center of the room. Honging then asks if he needs any medicines or treasures for the process. Our boy says no and asks her to simply lie down there to begin. The woman is shocked by the request and asks, stuttering, if he's sure about this. She then says that this isn't appropriate, and our hero asks if she's going to do it or not. Meanwhile, at the Blackwind Gang's fortress, the real Shangda feels the pain. He wonders who on earth managed to break his soul and injure him like that. For a true cultivator, crushing him would be as easy as crushing an ant. One of his servants asks if he encountered a strong enemy, and the master confirms it. The servant then reminds him of the treasure that cursed the Zhong family as a possible solution. The treasure in question is the Scepter of Eternal Damnation, a powerful and dangerous weapon. With it, the villain plans to drain Honging's life and leave her at his mercy. He then stands up and gives the order to prepare a human sacrifice for the ritual. His servants obey and begin to capture innocent people for the master's altar. Meanwhile, in the room, the woman asks if it's okay for her to be lying down like that. Our hero warns that it might hurt a little and asks her to bear the pain. Right after, he activates his billionaire system and begins the purification process. Honging lets out a cry as an intense energy begins to course through her body. She feels an absurd force invading every part of her and writhes on the bed. Our boy then asks how she's feeling and if she's comfortable with everything. The woman replies that she's fine, but is embarrassed by the noise she made in front of him. Suddenly, she realizes that the poison accumulated over years is dissipating. And to her surprise, she has been transformed into a pure spiritual body through the ritual. Honging is shocked because not even a 9th grade pill could do that. Kneeling on the bed, she thanks the young master for granting her this rebirth. Our hero says no need for formalities, as it was what he had promised her. He then says goodbye and begins to disappear in a blue light from the system. But he complains to the system for not letting him pretend to be cool for longer. Yifan then asks 99 what got into her to call him out of the blue. The little fairy calls him a fool for thinking about girls when he's almost out of life. Our protagonist is shocked and asks what she means by that. 99 then shows him that some idiot is stealing his life and that he's been cursed. A screen shows his life days rapidly decreasing without stopping. Our hero can't believe what he's seeing and despairs at the situation. Back at the villain's fortress, the curse is draining the life from all the sacrifices. The people scream in pain as their life energies are stolen by the ritual. Shungda lets out a wicked laugh and says that our protagonist is now doomed. 99 explains that this is the curse of the bear brother he defeated earlier, and because he's immortal, he should already be done for, but she helped him hold on. She then gets furious because the villain dared to steal the destiny she had selected. Our hero then asks 99 how much time he has left. The little fairy explains that the curse accelerates consumption by 100 times, and now he only has a week. Ye Fan freaks out at the news and can't believe he only has 7 days to live. She then confirms that he is about to perish and tells him to find a way to break the curse. Suddenly, the system throws him out, and he lands right on top of Honging, who is still on the bed. The woman gets super embarrassed and asks how he got back there all of a sudden. Our boy calls her by name and tries to get up from the awkward position. She gets all flustered and wonders who this mysterious master is. But he tells her he needs to leave to handle important matters and to find him at the pharmacy. Hongyin then promises that she will do everything to find a longevity remedy for him. After that, our protagonist uses a sword of light to fly away from the location. The woman watches him leave and wonders who he really is and about the power he possesses. Meanwhile, in Black One Village, the dark energy continues to manifest, and a demon with bat wings emerges from the darkness, ready to cause chaos. The scene shows a pile of bones and blood, indicating that the ritual is in full swing. Then he asks how much time is left, and the fairy warns that the curse consumes life 100 times faster, reducing 2 years to just 1 week. Our boy is in shock and screams in desperation, unable to believe all his time has been reduced to a mere 7 days of life. 99 looks at the protagonist with a serious expression and confirms that if he doesn't do something soon, his life will be over in a flash. So she tells him to stop dawdling and find a way to break this curse immediately, since they're in the same boat now. Suddenly, he's thrown out of the mental space and wakes up in the real world, falling awkwardly in the middle of the room. To his surprise, he realizes he's still on the bed with Honging, and the situation becomes super awkward between them. The woman turns completely red and is speechless upon seeing our hero's face so close to hers after everything that happened. She calls him Master, with her heart pounding as she tries to understand how he appeared there so suddenly. But our protagonist gets up quickly and tells her that, if she has news about longevity remedies, she should find him at the pharmacy. Honging then composes herself and assures him that the Wambao Pavilion will do the impossible to find what he needs to survive. Without wasting any more time, our boy activates his flying technique and disappears in a blue light, leaving the place in a hurry. The woman stares at the sky in admiration and murmurs her master's name as the wind blows strongly around her. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the grim Black Wind Village, where a malevolent aura covers the entire frightening mountain. And there, in the midst of the darkness, a winged creature appears, flying and bringing a terrifying presence to the area. Finally, we see that the unholy ritual is complete, with a pile of bones and blood feeding the curse that is taking our hero's life. 99 decides to help the host because, after all, they are partners in this crazy journey. So, the two join forces and dive deep into the girl's consciousness to save her. Inside, they encounter the manifestation of the poison, which tries to grab them with giant claws. The monster notices the curse on our hero and is confused by his presence there. Furious, the creature lets out a roar and launches a wave of purple energy to crush them. But our protagonist doesn't back down and uses his own power to tear the attack in half. The impact hurts him a little, but he ignores the pain and presses on with determination. Without wasting time, he activates the billionaire system to finish the job for good. In the real world, Honging feels the effect and can't hold back a loud moan. Her body reacts violently as the purifying energy expels all the evil. After finishing the process, our boy wipes his sweat and asks if the woman is comfortable. She turns red with embarrassment over the noises she made and replies that everything is fine. Surprised, she realizes the poison is gone and that she now possesses a pure spiritual body. Honging is in disbelief because he did with a gesture what divine pills couldn't achieve. And looking at her legs, she wonders who this mysterious and powerful man is. Yifan thinks that destroying the staff solved the problem, but 99 warns that the curse has already attached to him and there's no going back now. Frightened, our hero looks at his chest and sees a bright red mark burning on his skin, proving the danger is real. He then freezes like a statue, feeling that his end is near and that this time there's no escape. Meanwhile, outside at the pharmacy in Tianwu City, someone screams in desperation, warning that there's a monster on the loose, and chaos spreads through the streets as a giant creature is destroying everything in its path, terrorizing everyone. In the midst of the confusion, the residents run in desperation, screaming that there's a monster. And right behind we see a giant creature roaring with furious red eyes. Meanwhile, 99 walks sadly, doing some mental calculations. She discovers that because of the curse, our hero only has 3 days of life left. Back on the street, a giant claw threatens little Linger, and Yifan arrives, shouting. Our boy panics and yells at her to be careful of the beast. But to his surprise, the girl isn't scared and the monster seems quite docile. She pets the giant creature, calling it a good boy with all her love. Then she notices Yifan's arrival and greets him happily. Right after, the girl runs and gives our protagonist a tight hug. An awkward silence falls as the giant bear stares at the two of them. Linger then introduces the monster as Little Cotton, leaving Yifeng confused. She explains that the bear was her pet when she was a child, but everything changed when her village was attacked and her parents were taken from her. And during the fire and chaos, she ended up getting separated from her beloved furry friend. Little Linger cries as she remembers the past and promises that one day she will get revenge on everyone who destroyed her family. But our hero places a hand on her head and tells her not to be sad because those villains are no more. Surprised by the news, the girl lifts her tear-filled face and asks if Black Wind Village is really gone. With a gentle smile, our protagonist confirms that he eliminated all of them because they were evil and dared to offend him. He then kneels down, holds the girl's hand, promising that she is his family now, and no one will ever bully her again. Hearing these sweet words, Linger blushes with emotion and calls our boy brother, with her eyes shining with joy. The mood lightens, and we see the bear holding a congratulations sign while our hero looks a bit awkward at the scene. Right after, the girl asks if he's hungry and runs off excitedly, saying she'll prepare something delicious. Our protagonist stands in silence, watching the girl leave, with only him and the giant bear left there, not knowing what to do. But the peace doesn't last long, as 99 appears in the system, mocking him and reminding him that he only has 3 days of life left. The warning hits like a bombshell, and our boy panics, wondering where he'll find a remedy in such a short time. However, the bear, Little Cotton, pokes his arm, trying to get his attention for something important it's holding. To everyone's surprise, the monster hands over a golden fruit, which is recognized as the legendary Emperor's longevity fruit. Yifeng almost has a heart attack of happiness upon realizing that even with its low quality, the fruit can grant an extra 5 years of life. Full of renewed energy, he calls the bear to go gather herbs, because he now has a new chance to stay alive and gets super excited. Yifeng then puts on a giant backpack and hands some items to Little Linger to keep, just in case he takes a while. Right after, he runs off with the bear and shouts that he won't be back for dinner, leaving the girl confused behind him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to an incredible landscape of high, mystical mountains where a very powerful sect is located. And there in the sky, a female cultivator descends with speed and lands with great style at the entrance of the sect's grand palace. The disciples immediately recognize her as senior sister Chu Wushuang and celebrate the return of the powerful warrior. Without wasting time, she walks quickly and enters the main hall, as she has a very urgent matter to discuss there. Inside, she finds an elegant woman resting on the throne and calls her sister, with great respect in her voice. The blue-haired woman stands up calmly and asks if Wushuang managed to gain anything from this experience. Wushuang then explains that she went to Dalong Mountain and ended up finding the legendary Sword of Compassion by accident. She then summons the weapon, which shines brightly with a divine light, and shows her sister the treasure she obtained. The sister gets serious and calls the girl to test the power of the sacred blade in a more private and secure place. They go to a bamboo forest, and the woman tests the sword's edge by launching a blue energy that cuts through the air. Walking among the trees, the leader says the matter is very serious and asks for all the details of what happened there. Wushuang then remembers being chased by the terrible stone dragon and being cornered, about to perish. But she reveals that a mysterious expert appeared and saved her, asking only for a method to extend life in return. The blue-haired sect leader is stunned to learn that our hero refused the Imperial weapon that everyone desires. Wushuang then explains that his power is unfathomable, and that he was the one who opened the rift in Dalong Mountain with his own hands. Furthermore, she reveals that the mysterious expert promised to go to Tinu City as soon as he gets the item he needs. The older sister becomes thoughtful, as she never imagined there was someone so powerful hidden in the city she governs. Given this, she tells Wushuang to keep the Sword of Compassion and train hard, because the situation is very serious. The girl agrees with the order and says she will make the report for the sect master as she walks away. But suddenly, she feels a terrible weakness and faints on the way, while her sister shouts her name in desperation. In a swift move, the leader runs and manages to catch Wushuang in her arms before she hits her head on the ground. Upon checking her body, the woman discovers a sinister purple mark on her chest, revealing the corpse Taoist poison. She is in shock, and with her eyes full of tears, she knows that this curse can only be removed by its creator. Far away, at the Wanbao Pavilion, Hongying receives a report that the investigation into our hero's pharmacy has failed. She smokes her pipe, intrigued, wondering how the young master managed to hide his absurd strength for 3 whole years. In her hands, a jade pendant glows intensely, indicating that something important is about to happen very soon. Hongying looks at a golden paper, a bit confused and lost in her thoughts about our mysterious protagonist. Then she gets angry about the servants leaving, but Old Man interrupts her, asking if she would like a millennial ginseng. Hongying's jaw drops when she hears about the millennial ginseng and asks if this is really true. They say the spirit escaped from the Imperial Palace's seal and went to hide on Great Dragon Mountain. The woman blushes and realizes this is the golden opportunity to get the longevity item that Master Yi needs so much. So she calls her pet Yuanbao, who appears all excited amidst a mountain of gold coins. She pets the little creature and explains that it will be essential for sniffing out the treasure on this new mission. Without wasting time, Hongying leaves all dressed up and confident, shouting for them to set off on the adventure right away. Meanwhile, in the forest, we see a huge crystal formation shining brightly among the trees. And right there, our protagonist lets out a loud burp, showing that he ate until he couldn't take another bite. He and Cotton the bear are sprawled on the grass, super satisfied with the fruit feast they just had. The system then appears with great news, announcing that his life has been extended by another year. Yefan holds the last fruit sadly and says that unfortunately he can't eat another single piece. But out of nowhere, Honging's little mouse falls from the sky and bites the fruit, stealing the treasure without a shred of shame. Our hero gets furious and runs after the little thief, yelling for it to return his precious food. However, he stops suddenly as he feels the wind change and realizes the atmosphere has become strange very quickly. Yefan looks up at the sky thoughtfully and comments that he has a slight feeling he's been in this situation before. Pointing an angry finger, our hero asks how the creature got back there so quickly. Looking closely, he notices that the mouse is holding Honging's necklace very tightly. Suddenly, a blade slices through the air violently, trying to hit something in the middle of the fight. Blocking the blow, Honging faces an elder who mercilessly mocks her strength. The old man attacks without pity, yelling that she is just a disposable pawn for the family. Unable to withstand the pressure, the woman is thrown far away by the brutal impact of the attack. Humiliating the girl on the ground, the villain steps on her, promising a very cruel end. As he tries to grab the treasure, the old man realizes his hand is empty and is startled. The villain freaks out in anger, shouting to know where the blasted necklace went. Smiling even while injured, Honging mocks him, saying he will never have the treasure. Furious with her audacity, the elder prepares a final blow to finish her off for good. The sword descends, tearing through the sky with a deadly and frightening energy. But our protagonist appears, blocking everything with a divine light barrier. The impact is stopped by a single hand, leaving the old man completely shocked. Looking up enchanted, the woman sighs in relief upon seeing her young master. Yefan smiles and thanks the little mouse, because it was thanks to its sense of smell that he managed to arrive in time. But inside he's sweating, thinking it's better not to mention he ate almost everything himself. He then hands what's left, the longevity item, to the woman, who is surprised by the gift. With a confident smile, our hero says the deal is sealed and now it's time to act. He stands in front of her and asks Honging to just watch the show that's about to begin. Suddenly, a golden light cuts through the sky, indicating that the enemies are not playing around. Up high, the elder glows with a powerful aura and calls the two of them insolent insects. Honging gets worried and warns the young master that they are both golden core cultivators. But our protagonist doesn't even care and asks if she wants to get revenge on the cocky old men. She looks a bit embarrassed and admits that her level is still too low to face such strong people. However, Yefan touches her forehead with a finger, saying that's not a problem at all. Instantly, an absurd amount of energy floods the woman's body, causing her cultivation to skyrocket. She feels the power of the golden core peak flowing and summons her whip, ready for battle. Seeing this, the elder dives from the sky with full force, shouting that he will take out the two insects now. But the dynamic duo unleashes their auras and prepares to give the villains an unforgettable beating. With a swift move, the pair unleashes their power and sends the two old men flying with an energy blast that sweeps through the forest. The woman now has a sharp, killer look in her eyes, while our hero just lets out a sneer of contempt, staring at the fallen enemies. Without wasting time, he moves like lightning and lands a humiliating slap right across the bearded elder's face, who doesn't even see the blow coming. The villain puts a hand on his swollen face and cries out that not even his own father hit him in such a disrespectful way. But Honging pays no mind and readies her glowing whip, making the enemy tremble on the ground and beg for mercy. Then, with a precise strike, she launches the old man into the air as he screams in desperation from the beating he's taking from the two youngsters. Seeing his companion defeated, the other elder in the purple robe gets furious and calls them troublesome hooligans. He gathers all his energy and runs toward them, yelling for them to behold his ultimate final blow that will end everything. However, as he gets close, he slides on his knees in a ridiculous manner and shouts loudly that he was completely wrong to attack them. The old man grabs our hero's leg and begs, crying desperately for the boss to spare his miserable life. Yefan is completely confused and asks Honging if that old man has always been so shameless and cowardly. The woman looks at the traitor with disgust and asks the master if they should let him go, as the final decision is his. The elder swears eternal loyalty to the young master and promises to serve the pavilion with his blood and sweat if they let him live another day. He bows in total submission, but thinks to himself that the pavilion's power will surely change hands in the future. Meanwhile, our protagonist and Honging walk away calmly through the forest, leaving the old man behind. Yefan notices the atmosphere has gotten a bit strange and turns around worriedly, asking what's wrong with her. The beautiful Honging then places a hand on her chest and, with a blushing face, thanks him once again for saving her life. She admits that although her cultivation is low, she can still fight a little and wants to be useful to the master. But our hero extends his hand with a gentle smile and says he will need her help a lot in the future. He doesn't know anything about gathering information and asks her never to underestimate herself like that again. Suddenly, a blue screen appears in front of him, cutting the romantic mood with a very sarcastic message. Our boy turns pale instantly, realizing he completely forgot about his dear assistant's warning. 99 appears, furious, holding a scythe and complaining that he ruined her moment to earn points. With a threatening look, the little fairy asks if he wants to live or if he'd rather keep messing around with the woman. But in the middle of her lecture, she notices something strange happening and lets out a loud gasp of surprise. The little fairy then quickly changes her mind and says it's nothing, with a look of someone who's up to no good. Right after she says goodbye and deactivates the system, causing our protagonist to lose his balance in mid-air. The young man curses the wretched system girl as he plummets toward the ground completely clumsily. And by bad luck or good fortune, his landing is cushioned by Hongyin's soft body, who turns red. Yifan realizes the awkward situation he's gotten himself into and, completely flustered, asks if he can get off of her. Yifan turns bright red and sweats profusely, stuttering that it was an accident and wanting to get out of there as quickly as possible. But Hongying misinterprets everything and blushes, thinking the master saved her because he truly likes her. Our hero senses the tense atmosphere and tries to get up awkwardly, apologizing for the accident. Not knowing where to hide his face, he bids a hasty farewell and runs off into the forest. The woman is left behind, sighing and questioning how she dared to have romantic feelings for such a big shot. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the imposing heavenly martial city, which seems quite stirred up by recent events. On the streets, people are excitedly talking about Lord Chu's return and how he organized the cultivators to help. They discuss who could have blown up that evil noble, and some bet it was a weird old man from the city. Hiding in the shadows, a man with a multi-eyed mask observes everything and scoffs at Stone Ghost's failure. Looking out the window, he decides that the city has become a thorn in the side of the corpse sect and must be eliminated. Suddenly, his many eyes glow intensely as he notices a very strong spiritual presence passing nearby. And at the market, we see Linger buying fish, all innocent and happy, wanting to make a special dinner. The villain realizes she is a pure spirit and plans to capture her to refine a malevolent spiritual pill. Unaware of the danger surrounding her, the girl walks along, skipping and humming a song, thinking about her brother. But she suddenly stops in her tracks, feeling a bad shiver and noticing that something is very wrong. Upon arriving home, Linger finds the gate open, which is strange because she's absolutely sure she locked it before leaving. Fear takes over the girl, who immediately imagines that a dangerous thief has broken into her residence while she was out. With her heart pounding, she peeks through the crack and stutters, asking if it's Brother Fan inside. But the initial response is only the eerie silence of a shadow with glowing red eyes in the darkness. Suddenly, the figure steps out of the shadows, revealing our protagonist's face, and says with a smile that he's back. The girl breaks down in tears of relief, saying he gave her a huge scare, thinking it was a bad intruder. The supposed brother comforts her with a hug and asks in a soft voice why she's trembling so much. As he strokes her head, he whispers that there's no reason to panic because he's right there by her side. However, a sinister red gleam appears in his eyes, revealing that his intentions are anything but good. Far away, the real Yifan walks peacefully with Hongying, unaware of the danger lurking in his home. They continue down the road back, chatting distractedly while little Linger's fate hangs in the balance. The scene cuts to the forest, where the girl stops suspiciously, asking where he is taking her so far from the city. The imposter smiles and lies, saying he hid a rare spiritual fruit nearby and asks for a little patience. But Linger backs away, shouting that the real brother would never act like this and demands to know who the fake is. The disguise then begins to fail, and the villain reveals his purple aura, asking mockingly if she's talking about him. The fake Yifan lets out a wicked laugh and assumes his monstrous, multi-eyed form, revealing he's completely fooled the girl. He extends a hand covered in dark energy and announces that he will take her pure spiritual body for his nefarious plans in the forest. Meanwhile, the real Yifan arrives at the pharmacy, all happy, stretching his arms and shouting that he's finally home. But upon entering, he notices the strange silence and calls for Linger, walking inside with a growing sense of dread. His smile vanishes when he sees little Cotton the bear and Aunt Ju passed out on the floor, realizing something terrible has happened there. Yifan rushes to help the woman and becomes furious when he notices they used a soul-searching technique on her, which is unforgivable. A blue aura explodes from his body as he shouts, demanding to know where Linger is, ready to destroy whoever did this. Without wasting time, he flies into the sky, scanning the area with his divine eyes, desperately searching for any sign of the girl. And thanks to his sharp vision, he finds a suspicious cave in the mountains and dives towards it like a vengeful comet. Upon entering the hideout, he sees poor Linger chained in the air and shouts her name, his heart aching with worry. Facing the villain, our hero recognizes the symbol of the corpse sect and grinds his teeth in hatred for crossing paths with them again. The dark-robed monster feels the crushing pressure of the intruder's aura and turns around, startled, asking who dares to interrupt. He ignores the danger and continues rambling about how he will refine the girl into a pill to gain unimaginable power. Little Linger is pale and weak, staring into nothingness as if she has already lost all hope of being saved from that nightmare. She tries to threaten the villain using Yifan's name, but the monster just laughs and says a simple mortal can do nothing against him. The imposter lets out a macabre laugh and mocks the girl, sarcastically confirming that he is her brother while revealing his evil face. Right after, he extends his hand covered in darkness towards the girl, as he wishes to steal her pure spiritual body for himself. Meanwhile, in the city, the real Yifan arrives all excited, stretching his arms and happily shouting that he's finally home. But upon opening the door, he finds the absolute silence strange and starts calling for Linger without getting any response. The smile vanishes from his face when he finds the bear and Aunt Ju passed out on the floor, realizing something terrible has happened there. Examining the fallen woman, he becomes furious upon noticing they used a forbidden soul-searching technique on her, which is unforgivable. An aura of power explodes from our hero's body, and he shouts asking where the girl is, with his eyes glowing with pure hatred. Without wasting time, he leaps into the sky and uses his divine vision, scanning the entire area for any clue to her whereabouts. And thanks to his powerful eyes, he locates a suspicious idiot in the mountains and dives in that direction with all his speed. Entering the dark cave, he sees poor Linger chained up and shouts her name, desperate at the cruel scene he finds. Facing the kidnapper, our protagonist recognizes the symbol of the corpse sect and grinds his teeth in anger at seeing them again. The masked villain feels the overwhelming pressure of the intruder's aura and turns around, startled, asking who has so much power. But the monster ignores the danger and continues his crazy speech about refining the girl into a pill to ascend and become a god. He then assumes a demonic red form and prepares the final blood sacrifice while the girl cries in terror on the ground. However, the villain freezes upon hearing a cold voice behind him, and our hero emerges from the shadows with a blue aura that promises certain doom. Yifan lands in the cave with a flaming blue aura, illuminating the darkness and placing himself between the monster and the girl. Our protagonist's face is pure fury, and his eyes shine with the promise of pain for whoever dared to touch his family. Feeling the terror of his impending doom, the monster desperately tries to negotiate, saying he'll return the girl if the hero lets him leave alive. Little Linger opens her weak eyes, and upon seeing that her brother really came to save her, she begins to cry with emotion. Yifan's expression softens instantly, and with a gentle smile, he tells her not to be afraid because they're going back to eat fish. Hearing the comforting promise, the girl smiles through her tears and agrees in relief, calling out for her brother. Then our hero unleashes his spiritual pressure and, with a cold voice, orders the filthy creature to kneel before him. Immediately, a crushing gravity hits the monster, forcing it to the ground with its bones cracking. Yifan stares down the fallen villain and asks with contempt if he really thought he could threaten him using a weak hostage. The blue energy begins to envelop the demon's body, twisting its limbs as it screams, asking what's happening. The cry of agony echoes through the cave as the villain is crushed and completely disappears within the vortex of power. With the threat eliminated, our boy carefully picks up Linger in his arms and tells her to rest peacefully. But the moment of peace is short-lived as a digital light appears behind him, signaling the arrival of that annoying little fairy. 99 materializes, landing on Yifan's back, and he complains about the weight, surprised by her sudden appearance. Holding her giant scythe, the fairy pouts and asks if he needs to be so dramatic every time he fights. 99 covers her eyes, shouting for him to stop this indecency because she didn't want to see that. But Hongjing misunderstands everything and blushes, thinking the master saved her that way out of love. Yifan tries to explain, stuttering, but the woman quickly gets up, fleeing the awkward situation. She shouts a quick goodbye and runs off through the forest, leaving our hero talking to himself. As she runs, the girl touches her warm face and questions how she dared to think of romance with him. The scene then shifts to Heavenly Marshall City, which is bustling with recent events. On the streets, workers happily comment on Lord Chu's return and the help given to the cultivators. They gossip about who blew up the evil noble and suspect a weird old man from the city. Hiding in the shadows, a man with a multi-eyed mask observes everything with total contempt. Looking at the city, he decides that place has become a thorn for the sect and must be eliminated. Suddenly, his eyes glow intensely as he senses a pure spiritual energy passing nearby. And at the market, we see little Linger happily buying fish, wanting to prepare a special dinner. The villain gets excited upon noticing her spiritual body and decides it will be perfect for his alchemy. Innocently, the girl heads home, skipping and humming a song, unaware that she is being hunted. But she stops abruptly, feeling a bad shiver and realizing someone is blocking her path. Yifan ignores the scolding and tells the girl to stop crying because he will protect their secret forever. He turns to the monster with a murderous look, and a sinister blue aura explodes from his body, illuminating the cave. The multi-eyed villain trembles with fear and crawls on the ground, begging for his pathetic life. But our hero looks at him with total contempt and promises that being defeated will only be the beginning of his suffering. With a swift movement, he launches a devastating attack that smashes the monster against the stone walls. The creature screams in pain as it is compressed by the overwhelming force of our protagonist's cultivation. After eliminating the threat, Yifan picks up little Linger in his arms and consoles her with gentle words. He promises that he will never let anyone hurt her again and tells her to rest because the nightmare is over. But suddenly, the fairy 99 appears, floating, and asks if he really needed to be so dramatic. Yifan complains that she ruined his heroic moment and tells the fairy to disappear right now. The scene then cuts to the city lord's mansion, where a guard announces some bombshell news. The lord is recruiting doctors and specialists to cure his sister's mysterious illness. Our hero sees the announcement and his eyes light up with the opportunity to earn a valuable reward. He decides to participate in the selection and confidently walks to the mansion gates, ready to show his worth. Inside, he finds several famous doctors discussing the illness and prepares to enter the competition. A guard appears, all excited, holding a poster and shouting for everyone that the city lord has called an urgent meeting. He runs to our hero and explains that they are recruiting skilled doctors capable of curing the lord's sister's mysterious illness. Furthermore, the man places a hand on Yifan's shoulder and assures him that whoever succeeds will have a bright and secure future. But our protagonist isn't very impressed, as he thinks the Lord will prefer doctors from immortal sects and not a mere mortal like him. However, the guard mentions that the reward includes secret techniques and longevity elixirs, which makes our boy change his mind on the spot. Yifan's jaw drops and his heart races just hearing the magic words elixirs and secret techniques that he desires so much. So, without a second thought, he kicks the door open with a burst of energy and shouts to his friend Lizzie that they need to go now. The scene cuts to the mansion where the selection begins, and a servant announces the entry of the famous Dr. Lee to attempt the cure. The other candidates whisper impressed, recognizing the old man as the renowned specialist from the 100 Herbs Valley and thinking they've already lost. But after examining the patient, the old man shakes his head in disappointment, saying the mix of poison and sorcery is beyond his abilities. With the previous one's failure, the servant calls the next on the list and invites Dr. Yifan to enter the room and try his luck. Our hero enters the room and is greeted by an elegant woman with blue hair who introduces herself as the Lady of Tianwu City. Looking at her face, our boy feels a strange sense of familiarity and wonders where he's seen her before, as her face isn't unfamiliar. Then the memory hits him hard, and he realizes the incredible resemblance between her and the warrior Shu Wushuang, whom he saved earlier. But suddenly a young, well-dressed man enters the place with a fan in his hand and a confident smile, drawing everyone's attention. A blonde boy with animal ears appears in the hall, mocking the others and calling the doctors present annoying ghosts. Lady Chu recognizes the intruder and seriously asks what the young master of the Jin family has come to do at the mansion at this time. He closes his fan and explains that he heard Wushuang was seriously injured and rushed over as soon as he received the bad news. With an air of superiority, the noble asks how her situation is while trying to appear concerned about the woman's health. Lady Chu sighs and reveals that her sister's spiritual sea is being eroded by a malevolent blood Chuai from the corpse sect. Hearing this, our hero tenses up, knowing this is very dangerous and calculates that it will cost billions of cultivation to resolve. Master Jin notices that Yifan is staring at the woman and yells furiously, telling him to get out of there as it's no place for onlookers. He points his fan at our boy and questions how a simple mortal doctor would dare to try and cure such a powerful cultivator. The playboy continues to humiliate our protagonist and tells him to stop embarrassing himself and get out of the mansion immediately. But Yifan remains calm and, with a provocative smile, tells the noble to try the cure himself since he's so confident. Master Jin accepts the challenge with arrogance and tells our hero to consider himself lucky to see a master in action. But as he tries to use his technique, a dark energy violently counterattacks, throwing the show off backward. The boy with the ears panics, shouting that Wushuang has passed out, and the situation in the room descends into chaos. Seeing that the playboy failed miserably, our protagonist steps forward with confidence while the others watch in shock. Yifan then holds the girl's wrist and asks everyone to calm down, because he will now examine her meridians. Lying on the bed, Wushuang cries out in pain as the poison spreads and blood stains everything around her. Right after, she coughs up a dark liquid, and the situation seems to worsen with each passing second. Master Jin panics and shouts, asking what on earth is happening to the girl. He's sweating bullets because he only used his Chu to probe her consciousness and didn't expect this reaction. He then looks at our hero with suspicion and wonders if the young man is interfering. The noble becomes furious and clenches his fan tightly, unable to admit his own failure. So he points at our protagonist and accuses him of intentionally worsening Wushuang's condition. But Yifan explains that the young man's Q collided with the poison, which is why she's bleeding so much. And to cure her, they need to find the core of the illness that is endlessly consuming her from within. Our boy then turns to Lady Chu and asks if she trusts him to save her sister. With her heart in her hands, Lady Chu agrees and decides to leave her sister's life in our hero's hands. Master Jin can't believe it and yells at her for trusting an unknown doctor. He continues to argue with Senior Mao, saying they shouldn't trust a nobody near Wushuang. However, the boy with ears tells Master Jin to open his eyes and pay attention to what's about to happen. Our protagonist unleashes a golden energy, showing that his cultivation is far more complex. Senior Mao is shocked and wonders how it's possible to release true Yuan in that way. But the boy with ears gives a smile and confirms that our hero was hiding his cultivation the whole time. Lady Chu then realizes that all this power must belong to the expert her sister Wushuang mentioned. Meanwhile, our protagonist focuses his golden energy to heal the girl with everything he has. The power is so immense that a pillar of light erupts from the mansion's roof into the sky. The energy is so strong that the sound echoes through the city, and the guards are left completely confused. After the light show, Wushuang finally wakes up, healed, and sleeps peacefully in bed. Upon opening her eyes, she sees our hero and the other two looking at her with relief. Lady Chu then kneels and thanks him for saving her sister, pledging her total loyalty. Wushuang also thanks our boy for saving her once again from certain doom. Our hero makes a gesture telling them not to worry, as it was just a small effort. The boy with ears then approaches and says that the new generation is truly formidable. He then asks if our protagonist wants to join the Tainyu Palace and offers him a peek. But our boy declines, saying he's just a villager who enjoys peace and freedom. Inside, he's annoyed because they promised elixirs and not a peek that's useless to him. Master Jin thinks that to release Yuan like that, one must be at the nascent divinity level. So he gets furious as he's never heard of someone so young and strong in the city. He grew up with Wushuang, but her family now trusts our hero more. But suddenly he changes his mind and says that his Jin family will support our boy. Soon after, he says goodbye with a fake smile and waves to everyone present. However, our hero immediately realizes that his words are not sincere and expects trouble. Then Lady Chu calls him, saying Wushuang is fine and will take him to his reward. And she leads him to the mansion's treasure pavilion, which is filled with gold and jewels. Our boy's jaw drops because the place is even fancier than the Wanbao pavilion. The woman then explains that even though it's not the Tianyu Palace, she has gathered many treasures there. The boy with ears takes the opportunity and invites him to visit the palace, as there are more things there. But our protagonist says that first, he needs to settle the score with the corpse sect. Furthermore, he warns Lady Chu to be careful, as the sect also harmed Wushuang. The two agree and say that with the arrival of the Immortal Palace, chaos will return in full force. Our hero then asks what exactly this compassionate Immortal Palace is. Lady Chu begins to explain that the Immortal Emperor is the closest anyone has ever gotten to becoming a god. In ancient times, 9 immortal emperors sealed the demons in the abyss, and the palace is their tomb, filled with treasures and with their bodies sealed there. Our hero then remembers that he was the one who split the mountain and is confused. The boy with ears then hurries Lady Chu to give him his reward. She then opens a box and shows a ring and a pill that grants 1,000 years of life. Our protagonist takes the pill with a very greedy smile on his face. But 99 appears and tells him to control himself because his smile is really ugly. Lady Chu then says she released the news to attract him and that it all worked out. She didn't expect him to come and thanks him for showing up. Soon after, she shows several secret manuals and tells him to choose one. Our boy doesn't think much and grabs one of the floating books in front of him, and he gives a satisfied smile as it seems he really liked what he chose. But the woman warns that the book is about body refinement and suggests he pick another. However, the boy with ears interrupts her and says our hero has his reasons. Our hero thinks that with billions of years of cultivation, what he needs most is a strong body. He then says goodbye to Lady Chu, who promises to keep him informed about the corpse sect. Back on the city streets, life seems to be going on peacefully after so much turmoil, and his friend Lizzie invites him to celebrate with a good meal at a tavern. As he boasts about the cure, an assassin approaches from behind with a dagger, and without warning, he attacks Lizzie from behind while our hero shouts for him to be careful. Our protagonist is in shock and screams his friend's name, desperate at the scene. Poor Lizzie falls to the ground, feeling the pain of the treacherous blow he took. Our boy runs to help his friend, who is bleeding heavily in the middle of the street. But Lizzie tries to act tough and says it was just a superficial wound. The two then move away from the spot while someone watches them from a distance, hidden. Our hero feels a shiver and looks back suspiciously, having felt something strange. Meanwhile, at the Jin family mansion, the assassin reports to his master. He says our boy didn't notice the attack, but the commander noticed something. Master Jin then boasts to his father, saying Yufan is just a mortal and not a threat. His father then says that with our hero's help, the Chu family will have the protection of the Moon Palace. Master Jin freaks out because they had an engagement agreement with the Chu family before, but the old man warns that Chu Woyu is now a master and things have changed for them. The playboy then understands what his father meant and gets even more irritated with the situation. Deep down, he knows his father thinks he's inferior to others, and that hurts him a lot. Unable to take the humiliation, he storms out of the room, slamming the door with all his might. And his fury explodes when he smashes a teacup on the floor with a scream. He then curses his father, calling him a coward for being afraid of a simple mortal like our hero. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears at the door and tells Master Jin to change his ways. And to his surprise, this man is his master, who asks why he's so upset. The young man then tries to explain what happened and how our protagonist humiliated him. The master becomes thoughtful and says that Tianwu City always causes him trouble. He then thinks that Master Jin's father has become very fearful over the years. And the scene returns to Master Jin, who is still furious with Lady Chu and her family. Now that she's joined the Moon Palace, his father bows to them without complaint. The master then says that if he were the leader, the Jin family would never have fallen so low. He likes the young man's ambition and invites him to go with him to a special place. Right after, the master summons a giant serpent with a very sinister purple aura. The young man then asks where they are going, and the master says it's to gain power. And with a confident smile, he promises that the young man will become much stronger. Meanwhile, at the Moon Palace, an origami bird flies over the mountains and forests. There, Lady Chu is training with her sword, releasing a powerful blue energy. Suddenly, the paper bird lands on the tip of her sword with a golden glow. She then takes the origami and observes it carefully, knowing it's a message. And with a gesture, she sends the paper bird to find our protagonist. The origami then flies to the pharmacy and lands on our hero's hand, who is surprised. He wonders how the paper creature managed to fly all the way there by itself. But little Linger explains that it's a spiritual communication talisman. Our boy then compares the object to a cell phone, and the girl is confused. And upon activating the talisman, little Linger confirms that the transmission has begun. But from the paper bird comes a cry for help from Lady Chu. Our hero is shocked as he didn't expect this desperate message. And seeing the origami catch fire, he recognizes her voice and panics. Meanwhile, Master Jin's master says that with everyone gathered, the show can begin. And he tells the young man to show his true colors to everyone present. Master Jin then gives a wicked smile and prepares to cause chaos. Elsewhere, Lady Chu is fighting an army of strange puppets. She is surrounded by dozens of creatures that seem to have no end. And the woman complains that 7 days have passed and they keep appearing. She then realizes that the enemies are endless and that she's in trouble. No matter how many she defeats, more and more puppets emerge from nowhere. So she unleashes her bright moon technique to try and finish them off. A tornado of blue energy sweeps the battlefield and destroys several puppets. But even with the powerful attack, the enemies continue to laugh and advance. And due to the effort, Lady Chu ends up getting injured and spitting blood. She then realizes that the Jin family's invitation was a conspiracy from the beginning. She had received a letter from Master Jin apologizing and inviting her to a banquet. And even though she doesn't like parties, she accepted the invitation because of their family's long friendship. But upon arriving at the mansion, she found no one and thought everything was very strange. Then she noticed that the cup on the table was made of paper, not porcelain. At that moment, she understood she had fallen into a trap and was caught by a purple energy, and a teleportation portal took her to an unknown and dangerous place. There, she was attacked by skeletons and found herself surrounded by an army of puppets. And even fighting with all her might, she couldn't defeat the infinite horde. Meanwhile, in Tianwu City, a crowd gathers in front of a house. And there, Wushuang hands a box to our hero, saying she brought what he asked for. Our protagonist then thanks her for the help and takes the chest from her hands. But upon opening the box, both are surprised by what they find inside. He pulls out a piece of red cloth and says that Lady Chu has good taste. And from the other side of the box, a statue of our boy apologizes to his sister. With a confident smile, our hero says that with this, they will find Lady Chu. But Wushuang starts to cry desperately, asking if there's no other way. Our protagonist then uses his divine eyes to track Lady Chu's energy. He then kneels and prepares to use the tracking technique with the red cloth. He explains that the closer the item, the easier it is to find the person. And with a gesture, he unleashes his energy to begin the search for Lady Chu. A beam of purple energy then cuts through the sky and goes straight to her location. And our hero can see the frightening puppets with sharp teeth and red eyes. He is then startled by the vision and wonders what on earth those creatures are. Wushuang shakes him and asks if he found her sister and where she is. Our protagonist then takes out a map and looks for the location he sensed. And after analyzing it carefully, he points to a place in the southwest and says it's there. The location in question is the feared Miasma Valley, a very dangerous place. Wushuang then grabs her sword and says they need to leave for there now. Our hero takes the opportunity and asks her to carry him since he can't fly. Wushuang turns bright red but agrees to carry our hero on her back. The two then fly through the night sky at high speed towards Miasma Valley. Upon arriving, our protagonist says the place looks like a horror movie and asks if it's safe. Suddenly, some shadows with red eyes appear and begin to watch them. And out of nowhere, 3 purple ghosts appear in front of them, laughing eerily. Our boy shouts for Wushuang to be careful and prepares for a fight against the creatures. He then unleashes a blue fire aura and protects the woman from the ghost's attack. Lady Chu, who is fighting nearby, is startled by the explosion and asks if everything is alright. Wushuang shouts her sister's name and our hero asks how she ended up there. He then explains that he received her distress call through the paper bird and came to help. Lady Chu is surprised as she didn't send any distress signal to them. The two are then shocked as they realize they've fallen into another trap. The starry sky then shatters, revealing that they are trapped in an illusion. And one of the seemingly harmless puppets is cut in half, revealing its true nature. The two sisters then team up and charge at the puppets with their swords drawn. Our hero then analyzes one of the defeated puppets and becomes thoughtful about what he sees. And he says that if he's not mistaken, these paper puppets are from the Jin family. Lady Chu agrees but warns that they also emanate a very strange, sinister aura. Our protagonist then wonders if the Jin family has joined some evil cult. The woman is shocked as it seems she already knows which sect is behind everything. And our boy is also startled, as the only answer that comes to mind is a very bad one. But before they can say anything, Wushuang shouts that the paper puppets are getting up. And the horde of enemies seems to have no end as they continue to advance relentlessly. Suddenly, we see that they are trapped in a crystal sphere, being watched by someone. And the one watching everything is a hooded figure with a very wicked smile. He is in a meeting with other villains and announces that the 3 have finally arrived at the trap. One of the female villains with a snake then mocks Lady Chu for being trapped by something so simple. However, a red demon warns her not to let her guard down and underestimate the heroes. The hooded leader agrees and says that even with the advantage, they need to be cautious. But a man assures them that with the help of the Great Sun Dynasty, they have no way of escaping. The red-haired man says that with the help of the sect master, they will get the immortal palace. And then, a purple-haired woman turns to 2 old men who seem very tense. She teases them, saying they don't seem very willing to cooperate with the plan. One of the elders then explodes in anger and shouts that they only serve the master of the Jin family. But a red demon just lets out a sneer of contempt at the two old men. He then tells them to swallow a purple item to prove their loyalty to the new group. The elders panic and say that the corpse sect is crossing the line. Suddenly, the red-haired man opens his fan with a very subtle sound. And he says he agrees with what Elder Ren said about the loyalty test. So one of the old men shouts at the other to eat the item and get it over with. The poor guy then swallows the purple creature with a look of disgust and desperation. The snake woman then warns that if he rebels, the worms in his body will not forgive him. The other elders remain silent and terrified by the scene they just witnessed. And a white-haired man warns that the two masters of the family are losing their patience. Finally, the hooded leader orders the two to take the elders to the Magma Valley. The two elders then bow and accept the order with a grim look on their faces. With that, the hooded leader activates the crystal sphere and the trap finally begins. In Miasma Valley, a dark energy erupts from the ground and cracks the entire landscape. And the illusion begins to break, revealing a giant purple barrier that traps everyone. Our hero then shouts in surprise as he didn't expect the barrier to be real. Suddenly, several purple skeletons rise from the ground, and Lady Chu tells everyone to be careful. As they fight, a voice mocks Lady Chu, saying that Elder Wu was mistaken. Our protagonist and the woman then look up and shout, asking who is there. And to their surprise, the villains from the corpse sect and the Jin family appear in the sky. The snake woman then says they don't even need to fight, as the skeletons can handle them. And with a wicked smile, she says that soon everyone will be her puppets and toys. But before she finishes her sentence, something interrupts her, and all the villains are startled. Our hero stops Lady Chu and says that now it's his turn to speak some truths. With a golden aura, he tells them to think about how amusing their demise will be. And with a serious look, he asks if he isn't right about what's going to happen to them. Lady Chu is shocked and thinks that he is even stronger than she imagined. So our hero points to the villains who ask who on earth he is. He then tells the Chu sisters to take care of the skeletons on the ground. Our protagonist says he will handle the three big bosses by himself in the fight. He then picks up a stick and says he will finish them in just 3 strikes. But he quickly corrects himself and says he will end it all in a single move. The demon then gets irritated and calls him a brat for being so arrogant with him. Our hero then launches a purple energy attack that traps all the enemies. And from a distance, he watches his attack hit the villain's head on in the middle of the sky. With a confident look, he shows that the fight is completely under his control. Right after, he charges forward and lands punches and kicks on each of them. The demon then tries one last attack with his sword, but our hero just laughs. And with a single hand chop, he shatters the enemy's sword into several pieces. The weapon then flies and hits one of the elders, who cries out in pain from the direct hit. Our boy then teases him and asks where all that arrogance from before went. Our hero then mocks the villains, saying that the so-called strong ones aren't a big deal. The demon gets furious with the taunt and charges at him, yelling a curse. But our protagonist is much faster and says his attack is too slow. And with a swift movement, our boy grabs the demon's wrist, stopping the blow. The villain is shocked as he didn't expect him to be able to stop his attack. With a golden punch, our hero makes the demon explode. He also screams in pain. Our protagonist then unleashes a wave of energy that hits the skeletons hard. With a powerful sword, our boy shouts that it's time to perish. Therefore, the attack generates a gigantic explosion that destroys everything. The demon is shocked as he has never seen anything like it. Moreover, Lady Chu witnesses the power and thinks he is a god. The force of the impact leaves a giant crater on the ground. The elder Jin Yue spits blood as she was hit, but she complains that it was a glancing blow. But Jin Ming wasn't so lucky, since the poor guy was hit head-on and was defeated with no chance of defense. Therefore, terrified, the old woman decides to flee. However, Lady Chu and Wu Shuan block her escape route, so Lady Chu asks about Wu Ji and threatens the old woman. However, the old woman says she will tell them everything. She starts screaming that she was poisoned and that someone wants her gone. The old woman screams as the poison consumes her, and Lady Chu comments on the brutal methods. Meanwhile, the villain Wu Ji says that Yi Fan is a troublemaker and that he can't defeat him. So he reports to Patriarch Jin, saying that he picked a fight with the wrong person. The Patriarch gets furious because our hero hid his strength and is much stronger than expected. So Wu Ji tells him to advance his cultivation to the next level as quickly as possible. And he tells the Patriarch to devour more lives to crush Yi Fan because every sacrifice is worth it. The Jin family leader then becomes thoughtful and seems to accept the villain's evil plan. Soon after, he punches the throne and, with a dark mask, accepts his cruel fate. An elder then runs in and tells him to quickly prepare a blood sacrifice for the ritual. But the old man warns that if they listen to Wu Ji, the Jin family will be destroyed forever. However, the Patriarch orders the elder to prepare the sacrifice, as he sees no other way out. The poor old man is terrified but agrees to obey his master's order. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to the forest, where the battle has finally ended, and the 3 heroes fly away from Miasma Valley after all the chaos. Our boy then checks the system and notices that his life has decreased again with the fight. He then finds it strange that 999 hasn't appeared to tease him and misses the little fairy. So our hero wonders if he's gone crazy for missing her taunts. Wu Xuan then asks if everything is okay, and our boy says it's nothing. Meanwhile, Lady Chu thinks that even though he's strong, he's not arrogant at all. And she watches the two flying together and thinks that if Wu Shuang could be with him, our protagonist then thanks Lady Chu for saving him earlier. The woman gets a bit flustered by his sudden thanks, and she also thanks him for helping Yu several times. Lady Chu then says that a swordswoman should have no desires and focus on the sword. So she should be happy for her sister's friendship with our hero. But she clutches her chest and wonders why she feels something strange in her heart. The scene then cuts to a night sky with a very sinister red moon, and a mysterious woman is relaxing and humming in a very suspicious way. Wu Ji then reports to her about the sacrifice of the entire Jin family, and we see that all the family members were annihilated in a dark ritual. The villain explains that Patriarch Jin has turned into a mindless monster. The mysterious woman then says it's better this way and that her friendship was very useful. Wu Ji still mocks the Patriarch for handing over his family with a silly trick, and one of the servants celebrates because, thanks to that, their plan went perfectly. The leader then says that dominating the entire region is getting closer and closer. Meanwhile, our heroes arrive in a red valley filled with bones and demise. The place is an open-air cemetery with mortal remains everywhere. Wu Shuang then covers her mouth and complains about the disgusting smell of the place. Our boy says that the members of the corpse sect are all crazy for living there. Suddenly, Lady Chu is grabbed by red tentacles and shouts, asking who it was. She then warns our hero Wu Shuang to be careful of the ambush. Soon after, several puppet heads are thrown towards them with full force, and the three are shocked as they recognize the head of the Jin family elder. Our protagonist then wonders why the corpse sect would take out the Jin family. Lady Chu then asks our hero to investigate what on earth happened there. Our hero then activates his divine eye with a golden energy, and with his power he floats in the air, releasing a powerful aura. His vision then shows Patriarch Jin running in a very strange way. Furthermore, he sees the man transforming into a bizarre creature. With a wicked smile and red eyes, the Patriarch is now a monster. Our boy is shocked and wonders what kind of monster that is. The Chu sisters prepare to fight, and our hero recognizes Jin Yang. The monster then charges at them with a very sinister purple aura, and he attacks Wu Shuang with sharp claws, wanting to finish her off. Lady Chu steps in front, and the two team up to defend themselves from the attack, but the monster holds Lady Chu's sword with its hand without any problem. Soon after, with a single squeeze, he shatters the woman's blade into several pieces. The villain then gives a very wicked laugh at the defenseless Lady Chu. She is shocked because his strength has far surpassed hers. Finally, the monster attacks her with full force while she cries out in pain from the blow. Our hero then appears and lands a powerful kick on the monster with all his might. The villain just laughs and unleashes an even more powerful purple energy than before. With a roar of fury, the monster shows its true form with red eyes, and he lets out a frightening roar, showing that he's still ready for a fight. Our protagonist can't believe it, as the kick should have finished off the Patriarch. But the creature gets up and, with a roar, shows that it felt nothing from the blow. So our hero tells Lady Chu that he has a plan to lure the monster, and he activates his divine eye again, but this time with blue rays. Our boy is surprised because the monster has merged with the void and become his soul. Jin Yang then calls him arrogant and charges at him with a roar. But our hero says that to tame a beast, you need a rope. The monster then tries to flee, but our boy warns that he won't escape. And with his technique, he traps the creature with ropes of blue energy. Our protagonist then asks Lady Chu what happened to Jin Yang. She says she doesn't know, but the master of the Tianyu Palace must have an answer. Lady Chu then suggests tying up the monster, but suddenly she's caught by a spell. With red eyes and sweating, the woman seems to be under someone's control. Wu Shuang is then controlled, and with red eyes, she attacks her own sister. The mysterious villainess then appears and mocks the scene, saying sisters fighting is beautiful. Our protagonist is shocked and wonders what kind of spell that is. The villainess then hugs Wu Shuang and asks if she knows who is behind all of this. Lady Chu panics and shouts her sister's name, desperate at the situation. And with a wicked smile, the villainess says the scene of the two under her control is beautiful. Our hero then recognizes the spell as the death dreams of the corpse sect. Lady Chu then charges at the villainess, shouting for her to release her sister. But the woman says Lady Chu's sword is boring and can't hurt her. Soon after, she traps the two in a whirlwind of purple energy and calls them rats. The heroes are then taken to a dark and giant palace in the middle of nowhere. Our boy then realizes they've fallen into another one of the villain's traps. And from above, the enemies let out a wicked laugh, observing the trapped heroes. Wu Ji then asks if they are satisfied with his hospitality. Lady Chu gets furious and tells the villain to return Wu Shuang and Tianyu. But the enemy says she is audacious and is in a very bad situation. He then orders his servants to finish her off, and the henchmen surround her. Our hero then tells Yu to fall back and stay out of the fight. He takes her broken sword and says he will take care of everything himself. With the weapon in hand, our protagonist says he will deal with all the enemies. He then unleashes a golden energy, and his sword transforms into a giant blade. With a single swing, he sends all the henchmen flying through the air. And with a serious look, he finishes them all off at once. The enemies are terrified and wonder what kind of monster he is. The villainess then decides to join the fight and, with a smile, prepares to battle. She uses her power to transform her servants into bizarre monsters. With red eyes and sharp teeth, the henchmen charge at him. but our boy tells them to get out of the way and attacks them without mercy. Our hero then jumps and tries to hit the villainess with his golden sword, but the woman dodges with ease and lets out a very provocative laugh. With a smile, she says he can't catch her at all. Our protagonist then realizes she is a soul cultivator, and he wonders how she has no physical body and if she cultivated a special technique. Lady Chu then explains that only soul cultivators can separate their soul from their body. The villainess then calls him a clever little rat for figuring out her secret. She then explains that her physical body is hidden in a certain place, and with a wicked smile she asks if our hero can finish her off. Soon after, she orders the controlled Wushuang to attack her own sister. Our boy then shouts for Lady Chu to be careful of the attack, but suddenly he is trapped by chains and can't move. He then struggles and manages to break the chains with his brute force, and with a powerful punch he destroys the portal that trapped him. The attack causes an energy explosion that illuminates the entire place. The villainess then tells Fan to stop pretending and show his true abilities. Our hero says she's mistaking him for a sick cat and unleashes a golden aura. Wu Ji says he'll find out if he's a sick cat or not soon enough. Meanwhile, Lady Chu fights her controlled sister and calls her shameless. She then realizes that the villainess's physical body is linked to Wushuang's body, and since she's already injured, she realizes she won't be able to fight for much longer. Wushuang then attacks her sister with full force and throws her to the ground hard. Lady Chu then falls to her knees and can barely get up from the blow. The villainess then mocks her, saying she chose a good grave to perish in, and she orders Wushuang to end her own sister's life without mercy. But Lady Chu gives a smile and says she finally managed to lure her there. And with a magic circle, she traps the villainess and Wushuang in a trap. The woman then screams furiously because Lady Chu used the cave to suppress her power. But the woman says it would be good to bury her along with her before she perishes and attacks her. The two then fight amidst a shower of giant rocks falling from the ceiling. The villainess then screams at Lady Chu and attacks her with a powerful purple energy. But the woman shouts that the time to free Wushuang has come and attacks her with the sword. With a single strike, she pierces the villainess's body, who is shocked. The woman then coughs up blood and is furious with Lady Chu's direct hit. The two then fall from the sky along with the cave debris. Our hero then hears the noise and wonders what on earth happened there. And suddenly Wu Ji attacks him from behind, but he manages to defend himself. The villain then taunts him, saying that now it's just the two of them left in the fight. And with his daggers, he charges at our hero with everything he has. Our protagonist then realizes that if the fight drags on, he'll be in trouble. So he checks the system and sees that his life is running out again. He then freaks out at the system for having worked so hard for nothing. 99 then appears and teases him, offering an advanced function. Our hero gets mad, but the little fairy asks if he wants to activate the function or not. And with the enemy in front of him, he shouts that he has no other choice and activates the system. He then yells at 99 and unleashes a purple energy that explodes everything. The two then fight in a red whirlwind, exchanging sword blows. Our hero says it's time to end this and prepares for the final blow. With a tap on the system screen, he unleashes all his power at once. The villain says that few can withstand his blow and that our boy is one of them. But our protagonist challenges him to see if he can take his punch. Wu Ji gets irritated and calls him an arrogant brat for underestimating him. The two then collide their punches in an explosion of golden and purple energy. The villain screams in pain from the impact and is thrown far away. Our boy then asks if he's okay and charges at him again. With another punch, he hits Wu Ji head on, who has no chance to defend himself. The villain caws from the blow and is left stunned by our hero's strength. Our protagonist then throws him to the ground and traps him with the power of his cultivation. And with his foot on the enemy's chest, he asks how it feels to take a punch from him. But the villain says he's only seen eyes like Yifan's twice in 1,000 years. And one of those guys was the immortal Emperor Nian Tian, leaving our hero shocked. He then points his sword at the villain and tells him to explain what's happening. But Wu Ji just laughs and attacks him with his malevolent purple energy. And with a gesture, he prepares to suck the energy from one of his servants. The poor henchman cries for help, but the villain has no mercy. He then grabs the servant by the neck and begins to drain all his life. The young man then turns to dust in his master's arms, who doesn't care about his passing. And with a satisfied smile, the villain says he feels much better now. He then faces our hero and asks why he has that disgusted look on his face. Our protagonist gets furious and asks what on earth he meant by that. The villain then charges at him, and the two exchange sword blows again. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Chu sisters' fight also continues with full force. Wushuang manages to save her sister, and the two hold onto a cliff. Lady Chu then wakes up, and Wushuang celebrates that she has finally awakened. And she explains that when the spell wore off, she recovered and stuck her sword in the rock. The two then wonder what's happening and watch the fight from a distance. Suddenly, the villainess reappears with white butterflies, and Lady Chu warns them to be careful. And she notices that the woman is heading towards our hero, Yifan. Lady Chu then uses a talisman to help and hopes the sect master arrives. And with a prayer, she sends energy to our boy and asks him to be okay. Meanwhile, our protagonist lands a powerful sword strike on Wu Ji. The villain is panting and tired from the intensity of the battle against our hero. Our boy then taunts him and asks what's wrong and if he can't continue. But the enemy praises his skill and says he's just like the man from 1,000 years ago. The scene then cuts to a flashback showing the immortal emperor from behind. The villain then gets up and says he hasn't progressed at all in the last 1,000 years. Our hero is then startled by the energy that Wuji begins to release, and several red butterflies appear and begin to attack our protagonist. He then wonders if those are really butterflies and stays on high alert. The villainess then bows to Wuji and prepares for the next attack. The villain then grabs the woman by the chin and tells her to offer everything to him. She then agrees, and the villain absorbs all her life energy without mercy. With a gesture, he orders the butterflies to destroy the world for him. And with a dark look, he prepares for his final transformation. Wuji then turns into a fallen angel with butterfly wings and absurd power. Our hero panics and wonders if the boss has a second phase. 99 then appears and teases him for sweating so much in front of the enemy. Our protagonist then cries and asks for her help, but the little fairy says she can't. And she explains that the villain has absorbed a lot of life but hasn't fully transformed yet, so she suggests that he defeat him before his cultivation runs out. Our boy then asks if she can give him some buffs, but 99 refuses. He then freaks out and says that other systems help their hosts and that she's different. But the monster attacks him, and our hero doesn't have time to argue with the little fairy. With a furious look, he prepares for the fight against the fallen angel, and with a shout he unleashes his golden energy and challenges him to the fight. The two then exchange punches in a very intense aerial battle full of lights. But the villain mocks our hero's strength and asks if he didn't eat properly. Our protagonist is shocked because his blow didn't even tickle the enemy. Wuji then says that his strength is the same as he used against the stone dragon, and with a single blow, he throws our boy to the ground with absurd force. Our hero then falls hard and creates a crater in the ground with the impact. And he laments that he's disappointed, as he expected more from his own power. But our protagonist gets up and says he doesn't want to owe the system so much. And with a confident look, he charges at the villain again with everything he has. He then grabs the monster's wings and begins to rip them off without mercy. With a roar of fury, our boy tears the enemy's wings with his bare hands. The villain then wonders how he is getting stronger and stronger. And with clenched teeth, he can't believe he's being surpassed by our hero. Our protagonist then says that the enemy really underestimated him. Wuji then launches a blast of purple energy, but our boy is unfazed. The fallen angel dives from the sky with a fierce attack, but our hero blocks it with his bare hand. And the villain mocks his strength, asking if our boy forgot to have lunch today. Yefang grits his teeth in surprise, as the enemy's strength is much greater than he expected. Right after, the monster takes advantage of the opening and unleashes a brutal sequence of rapid blows. The impact is so strong that our protagonist is thrown backward without any control, and he hits the ground with absurd violence, kicking up a cloud of dust and rocks. But down in the hole, our hero looks bored and says he's quite disappointed with that. Up high, Wuji spreads his wings and shouts that our boy will perish along with his sect. However, a golden light explodes from the ground, and a giant figure begins to form behind him. Our protagonist then unleashes all his hidden power, shining like a true god. And a devastating energy blast sweeps the area, destroying everything nearby. Suddenly, a giant fist of energy descends from the heavens and crushes the villain as if he were an insect. After the overwhelming attack, our hero lands calmly in the middle of the smoking crater. He dusts off his clothes and lets out a sigh of relief for having solved the problem. And with a happy face, he celebrates that the job is finally done and the enemy has fallen. The villain then hides behind a rock, trembling with fear of our hero's absurd power. But our protagonist wastes no time and rescues the two sisters, carrying them in his arms. Suddenly, a white-haired man appears with an arrogant smile, facing everyone. However, our boy isn't interested in talking and prepares a concentrated energy attack in his hand. The impact throws the enemy backward, who falls to the ground, completely surprised by the force of the blow. With an imposing posture, our hero points at him and demands to know his true identity. While carrying the ladies through the devastated landscape, our protagonist remains on high alert. Then he comes across the fallen villainess, who seems to be dying of fear of him now. And stuttering, she recognizes him as the master who previously controlled the monster Jin Yang. Hearing this, one of the villains begins to sweat, afraid of his involvement being revealed. Soon after, he starts to cry and makes up a lame excuse about his family. But our hero interrupts him and demands to know the relationship between Wu Ji and the former immortal emperor. It is then revealed that the emperor possessed a technique to exchange lifespan for absolute power. Our boy is shocked to realize that this description is identical to his system's ability. And suddenly, 99 appears behind him with a scythe, asking if he forgot something. Lady Chu then approaches, concerned, and asks the old Dan Feng if he still has the precious longevity elixir. But our hero interrupts the conversation, pointing to the ground, and reveals that he has a huge stock of it left. Suddenly, the fairy 99 appears, floating behind him with her scythe and a very macabre smile on her face. The old Dan Feng begins to tremble in terror upon seeing the small creature and asks what on earth she is going to do to him. And a scream of despair echoes through the Red Valley as the fate of the sect members is finally sealed. Our protagonist completely ignores the drama and grabs a jar full of elixirs, celebrating the profit he's gonna make. Curious, he opens the container and says he needs to test the effectiveness of that remedy before anything else. Without a second thought, he swallows the contents and feels a wave of powerful energy coursing through his entire body. He quickly opens the system screen to check how many years of life he managed to recover with that valuable item. However, his happy face turns to total disappointment upon seeing that the elixir only added a measly 1 year of life. But he doesn't give up and decides that if the quality is low, he'll win by quantity, drinking everything he has there. An hour later, our boy is sprawled on the ground stuffed and says he can't swallow any more of that. Lady Chu then promises to report everything to the palace master and ask for the longevity treasure as a reward for saving her. Hearing this, our hero grabs her shoulders, all excited, and says that now that the sect is gone, he won't refuse. And with a mysterious smile full of hidden intentions, he says there's no need for such formality. Suddenly, a giant flying boat appears in the sky, and someone announces they've come to pick everyone up. Right after, a blonde boy with rabbit ears lands and greets our hero excitedly. He gives a thumbs up and calls for everyone to get on the transport that just arrived. But our hero has a bizarre memory of this kid running away desperately, wearing only his underwear. He recognizes the young man as the little thief who stole his precious elixir recipe in the past. Back then, the rabbit fled, running half-dressed and glowing, while saying goodbye with no shame at all. But our protagonist didn't let it slide and captured him with a magic rope while he screamed for help. Back in the present, the boy smiles and says that the master of the Celestial Moon Palace wants to have a chat with Yifan. Then the giant ship cuts through the skies, taking all our adventurers to this mysterious meeting. As they walk across the deck, our hero observes everything with curiosity, as the place is quite luxurious. Lady Chu takes the opportunity to explain that their master is considered the strongest person on the entire continent. In our boy's imagination, the master must be a divine and powerful being, full of light and majesty. However, in reality, someone is watching the group's arrival through a magic screen, hidden in the shadows. A man with a beard and sunglasses adjusts the accessory with a very suspicious smile on his face. He introduces himself as Wu Tinyu and invites our hero to sit next to him with a very relaxed posture. The rabbit boy turns pale with fear and mutters that Hanzhou is finished upon seeing who the master is. Wu Tinyu acts like a street vendor and shamelessly offers secret techniques for our hero to buy. Yifan is completely confused by the offer, while Lady Chu looks suspiciously at the ridiculous scene. The man in sunglasses doesn't stop and offers the Kunlun immortality branch as if it were a cheap trinket. The Chu sisters' jaws drop as they recognize the item as one of their sect's most sacred treasures. He continues listing legendary relics like the astrology plate and the celestial moon fragments without stopping. Then he begins to tell an ancient story about 4 companions who fought to pacify the wars. These legendary heroes mastered the sword axe, divination, and medicine, using their gifts to save the people. And after going through many trials, they found the 3 relics left by Emperor Shen. With that, the group finally achieved their dream and founded the majestic Celestial Moon Palace at the top of the world. The master then gives a sly smile and asks if that story made our hero curious about the place. Yifan looks a bit embarrassed and says that actually, Lady Chu had already invited him to visit the palace. The woman then confirms his identity and reveals that this eccentric fellow is the true leader of the sect. As they watch the sea, our protagonist narrates that in that moment of peace, he didn't know what was coming next. He never imagined that the powerful Celestial Moon Palace would be destroyed like a reflection in the water. Finally, the group arrives at the majestic Celestial Moon Palace, and everyone is impressed by the grandeur and beauty of the place. The rabbit boy, Geisi, runs ahead, calling for someone, and soon a stunningly beautiful, blindfolded woman appears to welcome them. Upon seeing the woman, our hero is instantly smitten, with hearts in his eyes, and calls her a fairy for her divine appearance. She then approaches with a charming smile and confirms if he is the famous Yifan she has heard so much about. But the rabbit Geisi finds this warm welcome strange and comments that she is usually cold and doesn't act so kindly. The mistress notices the comment and, with a smile that hides danger, asks why she shouldn't welcome the guests well. She then changes the subject and explains that the benevolent Emperor's palace has descended to the mortal world, causing a great commotion. Because of this, the true palace master sent most of the elite disciples to seek opportunities elsewhere. And now, only a few important people remain to defend the place, which leaves the sect's situation a bit vulnerable. Without wasting time, she grabs our hero's hand and says she needs to discuss urgent and private matters with him alone. The others are left behind, confused, while our protagonist is dragged into her chambers through the corridors. In the room, the atmosphere becomes heavy, and our boy shrinks on the bed, stuttering and asking what she intends to do with him. The woman then corners him and, with a serious look, proposes to spare his life if he answers her questions correctly. She demands to know everything about the villain Wu Ji's past and his connection to the ancient immortal Emperor Shen. And bringing her face close to his, she mysteriously whispers that there is an ancient prophecy linking all these events. The flying boat finally docks at the majestic Celestial Moon Palace, illuminated by the night. And our protagonist's jaw drops at the grandeur of the #1 sect on the continent. However, Lady Chu is surprised to see who came to welcome them personally at the port. The rabbit boy usually keeps to himself, and she finds it strange that he's there to greet them. Right after, a stunning and mysterious woman with a blindfold appears before them. Upon seeing the woman, our hero is instantly smitten, with hearts in his eyes, and calls her a fairy. She then approaches with a charming smile and asks if he is the famous Yifan. The woman joins her hands in a graceful gesture and says she was very eager to finally meet him. Seeing that scene, Lady Chu and the rabbit guy C are left speechless, not understanding the situation at all. It is then explained that the Emperor's palace has descended and most of the elite disciples have left on a mission. Without wasting time, she grabs our hero's hand and drags him away, saying she needs to speak with him alone. Gaisi finds this direct attitude strange and comments that she doesn't usually act this way. In the guest room, the atmosphere becomes tense, and she apologizes for the simplicity of the place. But suddenly, she corners him against the wall and, with a serious aura, demands to know who he really is. Meanwhile, a servant runs desperately to the master with glasses to warn him about a terrifying flower. The servant then explains that his father loves to gamble and that the family is ruined, and because of that, he had to join the cult to try and save everyone from disaster. But our hero couldn't care less about the sad story and cuts him off. He then turns to Lady Chu and asks if she's okay after the fight. The woman thanks him for his help, and the rabbit Gassi approaches with a smile. She then asks what he meant by helping and what they are hiding. The rabbit gets embarrassed and tries to play it off, saying it's nothing important. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to the next morning at the majestic Moon Palace. Our protagonist rushes out asking where Master Wu is. He finds two disciples and asks if they've seen the sect leader. One of the young men then runs to him and warns that another mysterious passing has occurred. He says a disciple passed away the previous night and another has just been lost. Our hero is shocked and asks if this is true and how many have been lost already. The young man confirms everything with a panicked look and says the situation is tense. The other disciple then offers to take our boy to Master Wu. Lady Chu asks the master with sunglasses if they can take a look at the terrifying flower the servant mentioned. But our hero makes up a lame excuse that he drank too much and needs to quickly use the restroom. However, the fairy 99 appears floating in his mind and warns that this is not the time for him to run away. She looks at our protagonist seriously and says he must trust her, as she would never harm him. Meanwhile, Lady Chu sighs in relief and says that it seems he did the best he could with the situation. Suddenly, a strange music begins to play in the palace, and musical notes float through the air, creating a mysterious atmosphere. The master with sunglasses smiles and offers our hero another drink as a sensual dancer approaches. Yefan is mesmerized by the woman's performance but soon realizes something is very wrong there. Curious, he asks Lady Chu who the real master of the Celestial Moon Palace is, as the situation is very suspicious. The woman is confused by the question and points to the man with glasses, saying he is Master Wu Yu. But at that moment, a servant runs into the hall, shouting that another bizarre passing has occurred in the sect. Everyone is shocked to see the body of a disciple with red flowers growing from inside his mouth. The servant explains that this is the 9th passing this month, and that everyone is afraid of being targeted by evil spirits. Our hero carefully analyzes the scene and asks Lady Chu if she has any idea what is causing this. And with a serious look, he activates his golden divine eye to investigate the truth behind these horrible events. But before that, Yifan comments to Lady Chu that their master doesn't seem very trustworthy and looks like a charlatan. The woman tries to defend her master, saying he has incredible divination skills and predicted our hero's arrival. Meanwhile, Master Wu observes everything from a distance and thinks that the prediction is unfolding exactly as planned. He opens a fan with a mysterious smile and murmurs that everyone's destiny is about to change drastically. Back in the hall, our protagonist approaches the body and notices a dark energy emanating from the flowers. He touches the red petals and feels a chill as he realizes they are feeding on the disciple's soul. Yefan turns to Lady Chu and warns that this is not a common illness but a very powerful curse. The woman is terrified and asks if he has any idea who could have cast such a malevolent spell. Our hero then remembers Master Wu's prophecy and starts connecting the dots with the descent of the Emperor's palace. He suspects that someone from within the sect might be involved and decides to investigate more deeply and discreetly. Master Wu then approaches with a serious expression and asks everyone to remain calm in the face of this tragedy. He orders the body to be taken to the sacred temple and that no one spread rumors to avoid causing panic. Yefan observes the master with suspicion and notices a strange gleam in his eyes behind the sunglasses. Determined to uncover the truth, our boy Menli calls the fairy 99 and asks her to scan the area. And the answer he receives from the system leaves him completely shocked and speechless with the bombshell revelation. The rabbit Geisi runs in, shouting for his mistress with great haste and excitement. Soon, we see a stunning woman with a blindfold who says she was waiting for them. The master with glasses pretends it has nothing to do with him and pushes our hero to deal with the woman. Yefan is a bit awkward but soon realizes she emanates a very strong spiritual aura. He immediately recognizes her as the true master of divination of the palace. The woman reveals that she already knew of his arrival even without having opened the star map for a long time. Our protagonist tries to help her up, but she politely refuses the gesture. He then decides he needs answers and pulls her into a private conversation away from everyone. The other disciples stand outside, not understanding this sudden action. In the room, our boy corners her against the door and asks what she's plotting. With a serious look, he demands to know who she really is and what her objective is. The woman gets scared and stutters, trying to explain that she has no ill intentions toward him. Yifan activates his intimidating aura and asks what her true purpose is there. She then confesses that everything revolves around an ancient prophecy about the chosen one of the heavens. And with conviction, the woman states that she believes our hero is the person described in her vision. Yifan shouts Master Gaixi's name, catching the attention of the woman who is in the room. The rabbit boy enters the room, all excited and smiling as if nothing is happening. And inside, the beautiful blindfolded mistress waits, sitting on the floor with a very elegant posture. Yifan sits with her and says he knows the reason for the meeting even without consulting the stars. With a determined look, he states that for the sake of the palace, he will do what is necessary again. The woman then raises her hands and activates a secret technique, making everything glow golden. The light is so intense that our hero has to cover his face to protect his vision from the glare. And when he opens his eyes, he realizes he has been transported to a strange, mystical space. There, he sees the mistress's projection in the center of a magical formation, floating in the void. The scene changes and shows our protagonist in the future, facing a terrible winged creature. He panics in the vision upon discovering that the final boss has a second fight phase. Back in reality, 99 appears floating and teases him for sweating with fear. Our boy cries like a child, asking for help, but the fairy says she can't interfere now. She explains that the villain has absorbed a lot of vitality, but hasn't fully transformed yet, so the only strategy is to beat him down until his cultivation is exhausted before it gets worse. Yifan observes the body and notices something strange. The young man's life force seems to have been transferred to the red flowers sprouting from him. And he asks the master if life is in the flowers, staring at the man in glasses who seems to be analyzing the situation with great attention and seriousness. But the man admits he doesn't understand any of this and calls our hero to go with him, as he'd rather leave this investigation for another time. Our protagonist then suggests asking the rabbit Xiao Shi, since he has traveled a lot and might have clues about these bizarre and mysterious plants. However, when they open the door, they get a shock as they find the poor rabbit tied up and gagged on the floor, unable to say anything.